Most people believe that if you're around people, you can't be lonely. But some of the loneliest moments happen in a crowded room. If you misread loneliness as more noise will fix it, you can end up more tired, more restless at night, and more unsure of yourself. And this is not rare. The World Health Organization says about 1 in 6 people worldwide report loneliness. It shows up across ages and regions. So today we'll bust 5 myths that confuse contact with connection, we'll keep it calm, we'll use real sources, and we'll separate what we know from what we simply suspect. Before we start, 3 open loops to hold in your mind. Loop A, why can a busy week still feel empty? Loop B, why can group time sometimes make it worse? Loop C, what kind of interaction actually counts for the brain? Meet Lena, she's 19, first year on campus. New city, big buildings, big crowds, big group chats. Lena is not isolated in the usual sense. Her phone is full, her calendar looks busy, she goes to events. She sits with people in the cafeteria. She laughs at the right moments. But after she walks back to her room and feels unseen. If you felt something like that, this video is not here to shame you, and it's not here to diagnose you. It's here to give you words that fit. Here's the first micro-win. There are 2 dials. Dial 1 is social isolation. That's the objective side. It's about not having relationships, contact with others, or support. Dial 2 is loneliness. That's the subjective side. It's the feeling of being alone, disconnected, or not close to others. This objective versus subjective split is also how major scientific reviews describe it. Social isolation is the objective state of few relationships or infrequent contact, while loneliness is the subjective feeling of being isolated. 2 dials. That's it. If you remember nothing else, remember this. The dials can move independently. That's why your schedule can look full while your chest still feels empty. You can have low contact and feel lonely. That makes sense. But you can also have high contact and still feel lonely. That's the part most people don't expect. So we'll use one simple rule in every myth: fear, then truth, then a proof moment, then a safe takeaway. No 10 hacks. No big promises, just clarity, micro-win. Once you stop mixing the 2 dials, the story gets cleaner. Myth 1, if I'm around people, I can't be lonely. Here's the fear. When you believe this myth and loneliness still shows up, you don't question the myth, you question yourself, you think everyone else is fine. What is wrong with me? That thought is heavy, and it's also unnecessary. Here's the truth. Loneliness is not the same as being physically alone. It is the feeling of being disconnected or not close even when people are nearby. And that's why crowded places can sometimes make the feeling sharper, not because crowds are bad, but because the contrast is stronger, lots of people and still no closeness. Proof moment, keep it simple. Picture a clean card on screen. One line says, social isolation is not having relationships, contact with, or support from others. The next line says, loneliness is the feeling of being alone, disconnected, or not close to others. That's not a motivational quote, that's a public health definition. Now the control part, the takeaway. Instead of asking, how many people did I see this week? Ask a different question. Did I feel known? That's the shift from contact to connection. And it leads directly into loop C, what counts? Because in real life, counting is not about numbers, it's about meaning. Let me give you a normal, everyday example. You can sit in a meeting all day, you can talk, you can answer questions, people can even laugh. And still when it ends, you feel like nobody actually saw you. That's not you being dramatic. That is the difference between speaking and being known. Lena learns this the hard way. She joins a study group, 6 people, laptops open, jokes flying, everyone seems connected. At one point she speaks and nobody reacts. Not in a cruel way, just in a keep moving way. It's small, but her brain logs it. On the walk home she thinks, I was there but I wasn't included. Micro-win, you can be surrounded and still feel apart. The paradox is real, 2 dials explain it. Myth 2, if I feel lonely, something is wrong with me. Here's the fear. Loneliness doesn't just hurt, it feels embarrassing. People often treat it like a personal failure. Like you did something wrong, like you're unlikable, like you're behind. And when you believe that, you hide it, you smile, you keep showing up, you keep saying I'm fine. But inside the silence grows. Here's the truth. Loneliness is common worldwide. The WHO Commission on Social Connection reports that about 1 in 6 people experience loneliness. And it's especially common among adolescents and young adults. Their summary says it's around 1 in 5 in that age range. Notice what that does. It doesn't make loneliness feel good, but it changes the story. It moves you from I'm broken to I'm human. That's the relief, proof moment. Put the WHO number on screen with a small source label. No drama. Just a fact, now the control part. The takeaway, label it accurately, not I'm broken, not I'm weak. Just this is loneliness. Because naming the right thing is the first form of control, and here's another micro-win. When people say loneliness, they often picture being left out. But loneliness can also show up inside a normal life. A job, a family, a schedule, a busy phone, that's why the two-dial model matters. It prevents self-blame. And it connects to loop A. If loneliness is common, then a busy week can still feel empty. Not because you failed, but because busyness and connection are not the same measure. Lena sees this after a loud event. She's with friends, photos. Music, everyone looks happy. Then the group splits, people pair off, small jokes, inside references. Lena laughs again, but she's working harder now. Performing, on the walk back she feels a quiet drop, like the lights turned off inside her. And she thinks, why do I feel worse after being with people? Hold that. That's loop B. Will return to it. Microwin, loneliness is not proof of defect. Sometimes it's proof of a mismatch. Myth 3. More messages will fix it. Here's the fear. When loneliness shows up, your first instinct is to add volume, more texts, more scrolling, more plans, more group chats, because volume feels like certainty. If the screen is full, you feel less alone for a moment, but then the feeling returns. And now you're exhausted too. Here's the truth. Loneliness is often described as a gap. A discrepancy between the connection you want and the connection you feel you have. That means you can add more contact without changing the gap, and that's why more messages can miss the need. Now, to be careful. This doesn't mean messages are worthless. It doesn't mean online contact is fake. It means quantity alone does not guarantee closeness. Proof moment. Bring back the idea of the gap. One sentence on screen from a reputable definitions review. Loneliness has been conceptualized as an imbalance between desired social contacts and actual social contacts. That word imbalance matters, because it points to what you can measure without judging yourself. Now the control part. Here is a small clarity step, not advice, not a fix, just a lens. After an interaction, ask 4 questions quietly for your own understanding. Did I feel understood? Did I feel safe to be real? Was it mutual, not one-sided? Did it last past the moment, even a little? This is not a checklist to grade your friends. It's a way to translate a vague feeling into readable signals. Microwin, once you can name what was missing, the feeling gets less mysterious. And loop C gets paid a little more here. What counts for the brain is not the number of faces in the room. It's whether you felt seen, safe, and connected. Lena tries the more messages route. She sends more texts than usual. She replies faster. She posts more. Her phone stays loud, but at night the room feels even quieter. That's a common pattern, not because you're doing it wrong, but because noise and closeness are different things. Before the next myth, a counterpoint, because trust matters. What if it's not loneliness? What if it's exhaustion? What if it's overstimulation? What if sleep started the spiral? All of that is possible. So here's our rule. We won't diagnose, we will use the two-dial language, and we will use careful words like linked with when research is correlational. Microwin, you don't need perfect certainty to gain useful clarity. Myth 4, if I admit it, I'll look pathetic. Here's the fear. Loneliness already hurts, and then a second pain arrives, the fear of being judged for it, so you keep it hidden. You stay easy, you stay fun. You don't want to be the heavy person, but hiding has a cost. If nobody knows what you're feeling, nobody can meet you there. Here's the truth said carefully. Research reviews have noted that loneliness can carry stigma, and that stigma can make it harder for people to talk about the experience. We don't need a shocking statistic to understand this. You can feel it in everyday life. People will talk about stress, they'll talk about work, they'll even talk about heartbreak. But loneliness can feel like it says something about your value. So many people avoid the word. Proof moment. On screen, a calm reference. A government-commissioned evidence assessment on loneliness stigma. No quotes, just a label, evidence review. Now the relief. If you feel hesitant to name loneliness, that hesitancy is not weird, it's predictable. And now the control part. A safe takeaway, name the emotion, not your identity, not I'm a lonely person, just I've been feeling disconnected lately. That sentence is lighter, it's more accurate. And it gives you a way to speak without turning it into a confession. Now loop B returns, why group time can sometimes make it worse. Here we must stay careful. Some research suggests that when people feel socially isolated or lonely, the mind can become more alert to signs of social threat, like rejection or exclusion. If your brain is scanning for threat, a group setting can feel sharper. A laugh across the table, a delayed reply, a glance at someone else's phone, small things can feel loud. This does not mean the group is cruel. And it does not mean you are irrational. It means the system is sensitive, and sensitivity changes perception. Lena experiences this late one night. She replays a group chat message. The words are plain, they could mean nothing. They could mean anything. In a calm state, she would shrug. But tonight she reads it as rejection. She thinks they don't want me. And then she feels ashamed for thinking that. Insecurity rises, then confusion, then silence. Now the micro win. If you can say, my threat radar is up, you stop treating every moment as evidence of your worth. You can slow down, you can pause, you can wait for more data. That's control. Not in the sense of forcing people to act. in the sense of not letting one interpretation run the entire story. Myth 5, if I just keep busy it will fade. Here's the fear. You fill every gap, you schedule every evening, you never let the silence arrive, because silence is where loneliness speaks. But over time this can backfire. You lose recovery. You lose sleep. You lose the quiet moments that help you reset. Here's the truth. Across studies, loneliness is linked with sleep disturbance, and researchers note that the direction is not always clear. Sleep problems can also make loneliness worse. That matters because it explains something many people notice. Loneliness often gets louder at night, not because night is magical, because tired brains are more sensitive. Because the day's distractions are gone, because the body is trying to power down and the mind keeps checking the social world. Proof moment. Show a simple chart card. Loneliness left, right arrow, sleep disturbance, systematic review and meta-analysis. Keep the language modest. Related to, linked with, now the relief. If nights amplify loneliness, that does not mean you are weak. It may mean your system is under-rested, and under-rested systems interpret the world differently. Lena lies in bed with her phone face down, the room is quiet, and the questions show up. Did I say something wrong? Did they mean to ignore me? Why does everyone look connected except me? That is not a moral failure. That is a mind trying to resolve uncertainty with limited information. Now the control part. Track it before you try to fix it. Not to judge yourself, not to prove a point, just to see the pattern, because patterns give you options, and loop A gets paid here. Why can a busy week feel empty? Because busyness can increase contact without increasing closeness, and because fatigue can make the gap feel larger, so you end up chasing more noise and the need stays unmet. Micro win. Sleep doesn't explain everything, but it can change the volume. One more credibility note, because it's easy to go too far. When we talk about social connection, we're not talking about a single perfect lifestyle. We're not saying everyone needs the same number of friends. We're not saying one lonely week equals danger. We're saying the body and brain treat connection as meaningful. Major health institutions treat social connection as a serious public health topic. The U.S. Surgeon General's advisory frames loneliness and social isolation as important public health concerns and calls for action to strengthen social connection. And large evidence reviews have found that stronger social relationships are associated with better survival. In one large meta-analysis, people with stronger social relationships had a higher likelihood of survival than those with weaker relationships. That does not mean more friends is always better. It means connection matters enough that it shows up in long-term data. Micro-win, you don't need panic to take something seriously. Now the ending, calm closure, no preachy lesson. Here is a 7-day protocol, but I want to frame it correctly. This is not treatment. This is not a cure. This is organizational thinking, awareness. For 7 days after any interaction, write 3 words. Contact low, medium, or high. Connections low, medium, or high. After feel lighter, same, or heavier. That's it. You're not trying to change your life in 7 days. You're learning your patterns. And patterns reduce self-blame. Because once you see the pattern, you stop arguing with your own experience. You stop saying, I shouldn't feel this. And you start saying, this is what happens to me in these conditions. That is calmer, that is more honest. And it gives you something that loneliness often steals, a sense of direction. Even if the direction is simply, I understand myself a little better. Micro-win, understanding is not a small thing. Now a 5-point recap in plain narration. Being around people doesn't cancel loneliness. Isolation is objective. Loneliness is a feeling. This is common worldwide. About 1 in 6 people report loneliness. More messages isn't the same as more closeness. The gap matters, and if nights get louder, sleep may be part of the loop. Next time we'll zoom in on that threat radar idea. Not to label you, not to scare you, but to show gently how the mind can start scanning for rejection, and how to describe that experience without spiraling. Until then, remember the simplest thing from today. 2 dials, contact and connection. And you can be full of one and still hungry for the other.